Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to say thank you for coming to our presentation. It's great to see you all. Today, we are going to discuss our research paper entitled Critical Factors for Successful E-Learning During the COVID-19 Pandemic, a Comprehensive Analysis of Management Perspective. Firstly, we would like to introduce ourselves. Who will speak in this occasion? My name is Aldila Nisa Ilmadu Sabita, Eva Rahmawati, Putri Kladiza Suci Aulia, Vika Amalia, Nadia Gusina, and Firman Maulana. We are here on behalf of Nupan Ilyas, Aan Komariah, and Dedi Ahmad Kurniadi. Ladies and gentlemen, before the COVID-19 pandemic, e-learning was growing by about 15.4% annually in educational institutions around the world, without causing instability or pressure on the institution or on students. However, when this study was conducted during COVID-19, the situation changed dramatically. Educational institutions have started to offer most of their services online, including faculty and various assessments through multiple platforms, to more than 16% of students globally due to restrictive global measures to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Referring to data published by the World Health Organization, COVID-19 has been reported in more than 216 countries, and there are regions with millions of confirmed cases. Many countries have taken precautionary measures, including closing schools and universities and switching to full e-learning model during the spread of the coronavirus to avoid the expected waves in the future hybrid. This action meets social distancing rules, strongly recommended by WHO to prevent the spread of COVID-19. This course begins in the middle of the spring semester, which neither faculty nor students expect. However, many studies have looked at critical success factors, or CFS, in the field of education from the perspective of instructors and students to improve future online learning system. Organizations can identify the most valuable CFS that need to be achieved to energize the project mission. To date, these studies have looked at the CFS of learning over a typical time period. However, CFS during the COVID-19 pandemic are expected to differ from CFS during typical times for several reasons. First, during COVID-19, the move to e-learning is open to all educational institutions, which is not planned. Not all institutions have the opportunity to change smoothly because not all institutions have implemented e-learning in the past. Unlike institutions that have already provided e-learning and are planning and investing in the online learning process. Second, during COVID-19, there are many factors other than education, such as political and health factors, that influence the process, making it an unusual situation. For example, at typical times, students can visit the library, take part in tutoring sessions, and even go to places with good internet speeds if they don't have a good internet connection at home, like during COVID-19 when students are in a curfew situation. Third, the course materials for course taught via learning per COVID-19 have been carefully prepared. Unlike COVID-19 where courses were not intended to be taught via e-learning. The list could go on not only for CSF but also for e-learning systems approach. These are just a few of the legitimate distinctions worth assessing in time of pandemics. In the article, we discuss critical success factors from the point of view of learning managers at different educational institutions, using multi-criteria decision-making methods to ensure the continuity of educational goals and the well-being of students in their educational while respecting the social recommendations of World Health Organization. This gives the perspective of those responsible for e-learning, allowing us to understand best practice during crises of uncertainty that called for educational institutions to switch to e-learning. This can help policymakers in the institutions better conduct education in times of crisis by improving the most important factors of preparation.
E-educations, distance learning, and online learning are all terms that are different from online learning. Abbas, Umar, Odeh, McKelvey, and Ali define e-learning as a broad set of application and process that utilize readily available electronic means and tools to provide vocational education and training. According to Hamad, Bedi, and Collins, that e-learning is the use various technological tools that are web-based, distributed on the web, or capable of doing so for educational purpose. Online learning has grown over the years because of its many advantages, such as flexibility, internet accessibility, and cost effectiveness. This benefit can turn educations into a lifelong learning process. According to accessing lecture at any time, as many times as necessary, allows students to better memorize the information needed for traditional teaching. The flexibility of learning as the solutions to people commitments to their family or work, which can increase the number of people enrolling in this type of educations. In fact, it goes beyond the learner, it also gives flexibility to the instructor. In addition, educational institutions are implementing e-learning technologies to improve communications between learner and instructor for better knowledge exchange as well as strengthening the learning community to achieve personal goals. Since 2015, UP has built Smart Class, which is classroom equipped with a digital infrastructure system that facilitates direct and online learning instructions between teachers and students. UP has been implemented the world-class university with tens of thousands of students enrolled in the university various programs, including undergraduate and graduate students learn. Since these events occur, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia has implemented many technological tools to improve their practice in e-learning system, such as learning management system, and supports new and beginning students by providing them access to over 19,000 ebook and other online academic resources. All of these e-learning efforts have had an impact on the transitions of on-campus education to distance learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, which happened all of students without enough time to plan.
In 1981, Huang and Yun developed the technique for order preference to either solution or TOPSIS. This method is commonly known as the multiple criteria decision-making method for determining the best alternative among a set of alternatives. This method basically determines the distance of the positive and negative alternative from the ideal solution. The TOPSIS technique is widely used in many industries, including education. Specifically, learning is becoming more and more popular and growing over time. For example, researchers Mohammed Qasim and Saharanis evaluated the criteria of 5 different learning approaches, where the performance of each approach was evaluated and calculated using the TOPSIS method. They concluded that flipped classroom, a student-centered approach with online material provided to students before class, was proposed as the most practical online learning method where standard strategic equipment for implementing learning is classified as essential. In addition, in AHP Topsys method for learning object metadata evaluation, Inche, Yigit, and Isik evaluated and selected the learning objective of electronic content and educational material in the learning system. They combine both analytical, hierarchical process and Topsys method to facilitate the selection process. Decided that learning outcome metadata is an efficient process for producing electronic content. A criteria were assessed using the priority ranking organization for the evaluation of enrichment and the TOPS method to the readiness for online learning and consider other option criteria based on simple additive weight or SAW and HAP to identify weakness and improve performance electronic learning. Indeed, Topsys has been widely used to evaluate different criteria and elements of learning as well as different approaches to the education system. Therefore, implementing this technique will help find the most CSFs for online learning during COVID-19. In 1980, Satie developed analytical hierarchy process or HAP. It is an efficient decision-making process taking into account both quantitative and qualitative characteristics. When deciding based on several criteria, the HHP method is one of the most effective techniques to use. Although this approach has been criticized for its process, almost all sectors, including resource allocation, management, and education, have used the technique to make policy decisions important and responsible. For example, the researchers of the Dewey investigation and prioritize important factor of academic integrity violation in educational institution. They said that the 12 essential elements of online learning were prioritized using a hierarchical analysis process. They concluded that the most important factor was inappropriate direction provided to students, while lack of feedback was the most important of all factors. In determining a learning success factor in higher education based on user perspective using fuzzy AHP, Anggrainingsih, Umam, and Setiade evaluated the CSA of a learning from the perspective of instructor and student at Universitas 11 Maret. They said they used AHP and fuzzy technique to determine the ranking of CSA from both perspectives. They conclude that the 5 CSFs from the instructor perspective are tax policy, regulatory policy, course quality, relevant content, and technical support, while the quality of the course, the appropriate content, the completeness of the content, the attitude towards student, and the flexibility in taking the course are the 5 case success factors from the perspective of pupils. However, this article has focused on learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is an usual situation. Therefore, we implement the AHP method to calculate the weight of the different criteria. The critical success factors are referred to as characteristic, condition, or variable that, when properly sustained, maintained, or managed, can have a significant impact on the success of a firm competing in a particular industry. By filling the CSF, stakeholder can boost this factor for the best outcome. Those criteria and alternatives were identified from previous studies on learning and were categorized to represent the majority of the criteria that were evaluated in other studies under different conditions.
Ladies and gentlemen, material and methods. The methodology of this study consists of three parts: a survey, the AHP method, and the TOPSIS method. More detail will be provided in the following subsections. First, the research team visited 69 educational institutions and scheduled several meetings with those responsible for distance learning to create a consistent picture of the issue. Table 3 summarizes the demographics of e-learning measured in terms of age, gender, nationality, university degree, and job title. This shows that most of the participants, 90%, have a doctorate degree, and in terms of title, the largest group is associate professors, 45%. The manager evaluated the criteria related to each learning system. During the first meeting, discuss the following discussion criteria: faculty characteristics, student characteristics, information technology, support, technology knowledge, subject, instructional design, teaching, online learning environments, collaboration, and knowledge management. The described alternatives are blended learning, flipped classroom, information and communication technology, enabled face-to-face learning, synchronous learning, and asynchronous learning. E-learning manager evaluate each criterion related to each e-learning based e-learning system during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Results and discussion. Data were collected by interviewing 69 learning managers. The response rate for round 1 and round 2 interviews is 100%. The weights of each factor were calculated using AHP software and Microsoft Excel 2013. Its consistency ratios were calculated to obtain consistent weighting among all participants. The main objective of the TOPSIS technique is to find the best alternative with the shortest distance, that is the Euclidean distance of the ideal solution. The data for alternatives to the e-learning system based on their criteria are provided, which shows how to calculate the square root of the sums of squares for the criteria for each e-learning system. The research team used Microsoft Excel 2013 software for analysis and used AHP and TOPSIS techniques. The result of the hierarchical analysis of e-learning critical success factors during the COVID-19 pandemic, it shows that e-learning incorporation seems to be the best decision. Work instead for the educational institution to consider when choosing an e-learning systems during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is followed by the asynchronous learning, which assisted face-to-face learning with a total weight of 0.533. This was followed by a flipped class with a total weight of 0.83, and finally a synchronic learning class with a total weight of 0.66. The results shows that the type and content of the course do not have a major impact on e-learning outcomes as previous studies have shown, as this is from a management perspective and all courses are extracted with equal weight or importance. It will be wise to focus on providing users, students, and instructors with more training in knowledge management. Institutional support is crucial in the success of online learning. This is consistent with who started that providing computer support and training to students has a positive effect on students' use of the learning system. Our research shows that student characteristics play an important role in the education system during COVID-19. The results also indicate that students need to understand their role in social distancing measures, develop their own attitudes and engagement, and find ways to motivate themselves to achieve learning outcomes practice. Results for student characteristics are consistent with a study. The main goal of this article is to identify and prioritize the critical success for factors for the adoption of a learning system during the COVID-19 pandemic. Focusing on crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the present study is relevant as no previous research and has addressed issues where entire education systems worldwide have been affected with many interruptions. Many educational institutions have moved from classroom instruction to online learning. Adopting a learning system is not an easy process, nor is a system adaptable to all types of disciplines and educational institutions worldwide. This study addressed the various possible systems and the important factors in their implementation.
Conclusions: education around the world has been disrupted by COVID-19 pandemic. Online learning is becoming more and more necessary and very important in educations. Educational institutions during COVID-19 faced the unique challenge of keeping the learning process flowing while ensuring that it remains profitable. Therefore, this organization needs to understand what drives instructor and learner towards an e-learning system. The main objective of study was to classify and prioritize e-learning system during the COVID-19 pandemic and to recognize practical implications. The study prioritize different e-learning system using multi-criteria approach. We found that the most important factor affecting the success of e-learning during the COVID-19 pandemic relate to technology knowledge management, executive support, raising student awareness of using online training system, and high demand for information technology on the part of instructor, student, and universities. This result need to be taken seriously, as no matter how good the technology is, preparation for the implementation of e-learning always plays a major role in improving the educational process. Blended learning is the most preferred e-learning system among the 5 methods discussed in this study. The result of this study provide useful information for university managers in the process of implementing modern technology in education.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your great attention to join the presentations. Thank you very much for your participations. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.